A very good afternoon to everyone. Let's begin with today's class. And as we say in the starting, that let's crack NEET PG, let's crack CSIR-UGC NET together. So today we are going to talk about Darwinism, Darwin and Neo-Darwinism. That is today's topic. So before beginning with the topic, let us have a small introduction about me. I'm Farida Bandookwala and I'm pursuing my PhD from School of Biotechnology, DABV Indore. I've done my graduation, post-graduation and MPhil in biotechnology, and I've qualified MP SLET examination 2018 and have a teaching experience of 10 years. So with Unacademy, what all things you are going to get, what is the benefit of getting this plus subscription is, you will be getting daily life classes, you will be getting structured course for the upcoming exam, and you will also be getting the live tests and quizzes, and then unlimited access to all the videos which are actually present at the platform of Unacademy. These all are the benefits associated with Unacademy. So you can just go for it and you can avail the best out of the available lectures on the platform. Then there are free live classes on YouTube, and there are special classes. These are the two things which you can get the access of. So this live class which is going on just now, which you are hearing, this is on YouTube. So this is one kind of free live class. And there is this special class, and this special class occurs on the platform of Unacademy. That is on the app of Unacademy. So you can just go on the Play Store and type Unacademy Learning App, and you will be directed towards Unacademy Learning App. Just download the app and make your account, and you can have the access for all the special classes. Then you need to pay a certain amount for this plus subscription, and this amount is also quite pocket friendly, so it is very reasonable. But what I would suggest is go for a 12 monthly or 24 monthly subscription, so that you can make the most out of the videos available on the platform. And for getting this plus subscription, and in this plus subscription some special kind of discount, use my referral code FP01. So by using my referral code FP01, you will be getting a 10% discount in the subscription charges. So do not forget at all to use my referral code FP01. So let us start today's story of Darwin. I hope it's looking like D only, it's not looking like B. So the topic of today is about Darwin and Darwinism. This is the topic of today. So the full name of Darwin, we know Darwin very well, we have heard about him very many times. So his full name was Charles Robert Darwin. This was his name. And he belonged to a very affluent family, and he actually lived from year 1809 to 1882. This was the lifespan of Darwin. He belonged to a very affluent family. His father was a doctor, and he wanted him to study medicine, and he was even sent to medical school. But he dropped out that and took admission in an arts college, and he wanted to learn about the nature because of the influence of one of his cousins. So there was always a pressure on him to stop pursuing the studies on nature, but he always went after his dreams and pursued the subject of nature. He had to actually come across lots of difficulties also in his lifespan. It was not easy for him to publish the papers and to give his theory, though he knew that his theory is quite true and everything, but still he was unable to establish himself in that particular time. He had to come across lots of negativity in that direction. So he was an English naturalist, was a English naturalist. And he proposed and provided enough evidence for its scientific theories that all these species, they have evolved through time, that they kept on evolving from time to time, and this evolution was actually based on natural selection. Evolution is based on natural selection. Darwin gave the concept that there will be changes in the species, and they will be kept on changing along with the time, and that is the natural selection. And his theory was actually accepted in year 1913. After his death, his theory was very well accepted, and it formed the basis of the modern evolution theory. So that is also, we are going to talk about Neo-Darwinism. So in 1930, his theory was accepted and it became the basis of modern theory of evolution. Modern theory of evolution. Basis of. So after his death, his theory was gaining the acknowledgement that yes, what Darwin said was quite true. Now, talking about more, in this case only, take another page. So Darwin, he actually collected lots of evidence on this natural selection. He was a true believer of natural selection, and he only gave this term, and he collected lots of evidence in favor of natural selection, that yes, natural selection occurs. And to establish this fact that natural selection occurs, he also wrote a 230-page essay. He wrote an essay which was a quite lengthy essay, and in that essay, he completely told about the natural selection, and he also wrote the evidence which he collected in this essay. Then it was not easy for him to provide the necessary information in this paper, because the time was like quite hard on him, because at that time people used to believe that God is the one who actually creates everything, and no one believed in any evolution kind of thing. So they were thinking that Darwin is going something against God's creation and God's logic. So it was a time when he was ridiculed too much. But then after some time, there was another scientist who was also a naturalist. His name is Wallace. And when he performed his experiments and when he gathered the information on evolution, so he was, whatever he was saying, it was quite similar to what Darwin was saying. Similar to what Darwin was saying. And thus Darwin, he got the chance that yes, now he can actually come out and someone is in support of him. So Wallace was the one because of whom Darwin got a chance to actually tell about his theory. So the publication which Darwin got for the first time was in the book of The Origin of Species. The Origin of Species. So this book has many versions of it. Initially its name was also different, and there was a copyright on its language also. Language could not be changed, and through 6 different versions of this book, it has become a very simpler and milder version of Darwin's theory. But by the change in his book, this book was quite well accepted, and it was one of the most controversial book of that time. So it sold like anything. You people can also go and read this book, The Origin of a Species. It is quite a beautiful work. So this origin of species actually changed the whole course of concept in the mind of biologists. So it changed the biology forever, this origin of species. And this book was published for the first time in year 1859, The Origin of Species. So it was the lifetime of Darwin when this book was published. So many scientists, they were actually convinced by the work of Darwin that yes, what Darwin is saying is true. But now in today's time, not some of the scientists, but all the scientists, they are agreeing with the fact that yes, natural selection actually works. So let us move ahead and talk about the theory of natural selection. Theory of natural selection. So what Darwin wanted to say is that variation is already present in the individual species. Individual species, variations are already there. Now, if the variations are already present, then how natural selection is working? So, the scarcity of resources in a population or in an environment actually leads selective uh, dominance of those individuals which are having the character for the existence. So, variations are already there, but now because of the scarcity of resources, those individuals which are showing the capability of existence in this environment will be selected, and such competition is going to lead into death of the weaker sect, and those who survives, they are actually naturally selected. So scarcity of resources will lead into survival of stronger sect, and eradication of weaker sect. So this is the scarcity of resources which is playing the role. So this reasoning of Darwin actually concluded that individuals which are having advantageous variations, or the variations which are actually important for their survival in the adverse condition. So this condition wasn't there previously, but this variation was present naturally in them. Like some of the people in today's time, they are resistant towards coronavirus. So coronavirus wasn't there previously, but now they are resistant to this virus because of the variation which was already in them. So they are getting this selective advantage over the other individuals, that if virus is attacking their body, fine, no issues, they will have some kind of immune reaction towards that virus to kill it. So that is like variations are already present in the population. Now the population, that part of population is going to survive, which is coming across the challenge, and they are overcoming the challenge, and they are living well. So more like to survive and reproduce without the advantage. So this is the survival of the fittest. This natural selection, what it says, survival of fittest. Survival of fittest. This is the theory given by Darwin. Now, let us talk about the logical arguments of natural selection. Logical arguments of natural selection. That if we are saying that natural selection occurs, so how this natural selection will occur? So there are certain logics. So logic number one, or whenever we are talking about any kind of theory, like today we are talking about Darwinism and Neo-Darwinism, we'll be dealing. So in yesterday's class we did Lamarckism. So in Lamarckism also we faced criticism that where it is actually failing. So arguments of natural selection which actually supports natural selection, that yes, natural selection occurs. So the first logic is that all species, they have a great potential of fertility, and they have this power of lots of fertility, but their population is going to increase exponentially if the environment is well suited to them. So all species, they have such great potential of fertility, and their population size will increase exponentially if individuals which are born, they all are surviving. So survival rate is high if survival rate is high, species will show its maximum potential, fertility potential. So every species whichever is coming on earth will try to dominate the earth. The logic says each and everyone is going to dominate the earth, but only that species will be successful in this kind of dominance, in which the organisms which are born to them are not dying immediately. So they are going to have the dominance on earth, right? So what are the things which are responsible for keeping down the fertility potential? Like if goats, they are flourishing and flourishing, so everywhere we'll be seeing goats, but it is not like that earth is dominated by one single individual species, but it is dominated equally by other species as well. So what is the reason? So the minor annual fluctuations and occasional fluctuations keep the level of the species down. So what are the reasons? Minor fluctuations annually. So what all these minor fluctuations will be? That will be temperature or annual rainfall, like that. Minor fluctuations, and some of the major fluctuations like major fluctuations like epidemic in once in a while in some years is going to maintain the dominance of a species, is going to maintain the number of the individuals in a species, right? Then the logic number 3. What does logic number 3 say? So we have read that every species will try to dominate the earth, and then because of the abiotic or biotic factors, some of them will actually be eradicated out in yearly fashion because of the change in the seasons, and because of the some epidemics, they might be eradicated out. So the third logic is limitation of natural resources. Limitation of natural resources. Limitation of natural resources actually keep the number of species down, keep stability of number of individuals. So limitation of natural resources also play an important part. Then logic number 4. What else is going to maintain the species? So whenever there is a population of some individuals, no two individuals are going to be exactly same, but they are going to show enormous variability amongst individual of population. This is the logic number 4. Then logic number 5, what does it say? So natural selection, it will actually occur because of the limitation of its resources. Those individuals who are very vigorous and very dynamic in attaining the resources, they will actually be surviving. Then the fifth logic says that the variation in the species, they are heritable. Variations are heritable. That is, if an individual is, like for example, very tall, and he's mating with a again tall, rather a little higher on average, and the male partner is like very tall. So if they are mating and producing a offspring, their offspring will be in most of the cases he'll be taller only. So variations, they are heritable. This is what he says. Then the term natural selection was actually given by Darwin himself, and he gave this term natural selection. Darwin actually gave the term of natural selection to describe the variations which are occurring in the individual and which are actually selected by nature and which are actually present. So Darwin gave the term natural selection. So natural selection was actually a term coined by Darwin himself. Darwin coined the term natural selection. Then there is another term, that is adaptation. What do we mean by this term adaptation? So an inherited variation that increases an organism's chance of survival in a particular environment is adaptation. So any change in the character or in a particular behavior of an individual which is giving him some kind of advantage to survive is called as adaptation. He's trying to adapt to that environment. Like if an organism is having a very smooth skin and he moves to a colder region, and suddenly after some time he develops thicker mane over his body or thicker hair tuft over his body, that means he is trying to adapt to the environment, and this adaptation is giving him a chance of a higher survival over other individuals. So if he is adapting like this by production or by development of hair on his body, this trait would be mostly passed on to the next generation. So evolution by natural selection would occur, and those individuals that are showing some kind of advantage over the adverse condition, they'll be selected. Now, like what Lamarck said, that a giraffe had to stretch his neck and stretch his forelimbs for procuring the leaves from the trees. He was just into the explanation that yes, the neck should increase its size. But what Darwin is saying, that there were giraffes who were having shorter necks and shorter legs, as well as longer neck and longer legs, and only those giraffes who survived, who were capable of procuring their food from the tall trees, because somehow there was eradication of the lower leafy areas and lower leaves available for the food consumption, so that wasn't available. So that's why only those giraffes survived who were actually producing, who were actually having longer neck. So like this, Lamarck, so like this, Darwin and Lamarck, they are into contradiction with each other. Now let us have a summary of Darwinism. So the topic of today is Darwinism and Neo-Darwinism. So concluding Darwinism and moving towards Neo-Darwinism. So the summary says that evolution is going to occur. The first is evolution occurs. No matter what is the situation, evolution will always keep on going. Evolution is not going to stop by hook or crook. It is always changing, though we are unable to perceive evolution at a particular point of time, but the change is steadily going on and organisms are getting transformed from time to time. So this is the thing. So evolution is going to occur all the time. Then the second thing what is summarized is common ancestor. Common ancestor or common descendant. So the theory says that every group of individual which you are seeing, or any group of organisms you are seeing today, they actually date back to a single ancestor. No organism is uh, born out of a different ancestor. One common ancestor is responsible for the occurrence of the present life form. So common ancestor. Then third thing that he says is multiplication of species. Multiplication of species. This theory, it explains that there is enormous potential with every species to divide. It has got enormous potential, and if they are left to look after themselves, they will try to multiply so much that they are going to dominate the area. So the theory explains that the origin of the enormous organic diversity, and it postulates that species multiply either by splitting into daughter species or by budding. So either the species, they can change from A to B to C, or it can become like A to B and as well as C by the establishment of geographical isolated founder population, and they can evolve into new species. So multiplication of species is going to occur. The species, they are going to increase in number with time, and they are going to decrease in number only because of some natural calamity. If a species is confined to a particular area and somehow that area suffers some kind of epidemic, or it suffers some kind of volcanic eruption, so only in those natural calamity a species will be eradicated. Otherwise there will always be multiplication of number of species. The number of species, they are going to increase and increase. The next thing he says is gradualism. So as the term itself is saying, gradually. So according to this theory, evolution takes place through the gradual changes. It is not a rapid change, but it is a gradual change in the population, and it is not sudden, that suddenly it will occur. Today there is a species of monkeys existing in our area, and suddenly tomorrow or the next birth it is going to give, it is a different species. No, suddenly from one species to another species, it doesn't arise like this. Slowly there will be accumulation of the changes, and these changes are going to result into different species after a longer duration. So gradualism, no species is going to become like this in one generation, but it is going to go through the cycles and cycles of a species, and lastly there will be speciation. And the last thing that Darwin says is natural selection. We have seen this natural selection, the parts which are actually included in natural selection. So according to this theory, the evolutionary change, it comes about through the abundant production of genetic variation in every generation. Every generation is having some individuals which are different from the main lead population. So this difference can be beneficial to them or can be deteriorative to them. Like if they are very tall and they are unable to eat food, so this quality of tallness will be deteriorative to its survival. So natural selection, the differences are already present in the individuals of the population, but now these changes are actually going to be on the stake that whether they are helpful or they are not helpful. So like this we have done our Darwinism, we have summarized the Darwinism. Let's move towards Neo-Darwinism. Neo-Darwinism. What does this Neo-Darwinism is about, and what do this Neo-Darwinism actually mean? So Neo-Darwinism is also called as modern theory of evolution. It's also called as modern theory of, evolution. Okay. Then it is also called as synthetic theory of evolution. Synthetic theory of evolution. So Neo-Darwinism is called as modern theory of evolution and synthetic theory of evolution. Now in Neo-Darwinism there are two postulates. There are two postulates. First postulate is about gene variability, and the second postulate is about natural selection. So this Neo-Darwinism is actually obtained from the Darwinism only, but there was a little change in Darwinism, actual Darwinism, and Neo-Darwinism actually came into being. So this Neo-Darwinism is not actually given by one scientist, but there are many scientists who were involved in giving Neo-Darwinism, and this Neo-Darwinism is actually a club of Darwinism and mutation theory. So it is like a combination of those two things by Darwin and by Hugo de Varies. So that's why it is going to rotate around the same concept. So first is gene variability, second is natural selection. So first of all, talking about gene variability. So what are the causes of gene variability? Causes. Why does the gene variation it occurs? Why it occurs? This gene variability because of mutation. Gene variability occurs. Then due to recombination, gene variability occurs. Then due to hybridization, gene variability occurs. And lastly, because of genetic drift, gene variability occurs. These are the 4 points which are responsible for gene variability: mutation, recombination, hybridization, and genetic drift. We'll be dealing each individually. So first of all, talking about mutation. Mutation. So this mutation can be chromosomal as well as genetic. Mutation can be chromosomal or it could be genetic. If we are talking about chromosomal, it can be in the morphology or it can be numerical. Morphological and numeric or numerological. So chromosomal, morphological or numeric. Now this morphological changes can be in the addition, can be in the terms of addition, and if it is addition, it can be duplication as well, can be deletion, then it can be translocation, it can be inversion. So morphological changes because of mutation can be of these types. Then talking about the numeric changes or numeric mutation. So the numeric can be in the category of aneuploidy. So aneuploidy is the change in the number of chromosome in just one chromosome. So it can be plus minus 1 or 2. So plus minus of 1 or 2 chromosomes. If a chromosome number is increasing, if it's a diploid organism and it is becoming just one chromosome, sorry, and if it is becoming this diploid chromosome is becoming into triploid, it will be falling in the category of aneuploidy. So this aneuploidy is actually a type of monosomy, trisomy. These are the examples of aneuploidy. Then the other thing in numeric is euploidy. So the whole set is going to double. So like if we are 2n, so it is possible that it will become 3n. So the whole set is going to double. It's not so that a single set is going to be or a single chromosome is going to change. If a single chromosome is changing in number, it is aneuploidy, and if the whole set of the chromosome it is increasing or it is going down in the number, it is called as euploidy. Right? Now this we have seen in the terms of chromosome. So this was about chromosomal. Right? Now next that we need to see is genetic. What are the reasons of genetic mutation or genetic changes? What all things are going to fall under this category? So when we are saying that genetic will actually be like point mutation. Now it is, we are talking about an individual gene. When we were talking about chromosomal, whole chromosome was actually changing and all. Here the mutation, point mutation, it can be. In point mutation it could be addition, could be subtraction, it could be deletion, and if there is a change in a particular frame of the uh, gene order or codon order, it is called as frame shift mutation. Frame shift mutation. So this is falling under the category. The whole frame is going to change. So now the protein which is formed is totally different. So point mutation, one thing. Then second is recombination. So this recombination, it occurs in meiosis, in the crossing over during the meiotic cell division, in the formation of germ cells. Then hybridization. So the two species, they are crossed and a offspring is formed, and this offspring is called as hybrid. And now this hybrid is going to show lots of variability. It's going to show lots of difference. So this is how the genetic basis of mutations are. Point mutation, recombination, and hybridization. Hybridization is nothing but when two different individuals or two species, they are crossed and they produce a hybrid, they all are going to show a difference in the character, and that is the hybridization. Now when we were talking about the causes of gene variability, we wrote mutation, we wrote hybridization, we wrote recombination, and then we wrote genetic drift. So lastly, we need to see the genetic drift, because that is also a reason of variability, gene variability. So let us talk about genetic drift. Genetic drift. Now, what happens is elimination of gene or allele. Elimination of gene or a allele occurs in a population. It is called as genetic drift. Elimination of gene or allele, if it occurs in population, it is called as genetic drift, right? Genetic drift is elimination of gene or allele from a particular population. So it is seen in a small population. This genetic drift will occur in small population only. Occur in a small population. It would not be seen in a bigger population, it would be seen in a smaller population. If it is seen in a smaller population, what could be the reason of genetic drift? There must be some reason. So the reason of genetic drift could be epidemic. Some kind of epidemic is leading into genetic drift. So this genetic drift, if there is a elimination of a allele or there is elimination of a gene, it is also called as allelic drift. This genetic drift is also called as allelic drift. It's called as allelic drift. And genetic drift, after that, the nature, they select the better which are adapted for the environment and the better which are adapted to produce the fertile offsprings or offspring having more vigor. So this is how Neo-Darwinism, it gave its idea that how a particular species is going to evolve over time and how they are going to change into another species because of the various reasons which we have just highlighted, right? So let us have a very quick revision of Neo-Darwinism. So Neo-Darwinism is also called as modern theory of evolution. It is also the synthetic theory of evolution. And there are postulates of Neo-Darwinism, that is gene variability and natural selection. So it is nothing else but it is a modern version of the theory of natural selection. And it is a sort of reconciliation between Darwin's and Hugo de Vries theory, I told you, between the mutation theory and Darwinism. And the other scientists which actually contributed to Neo-Darwinism is Huxley and Fisher. They contributed to Neo-Darwinism. Then the postulates we have seen that variability, loss of the chromosome, deletion, inversion, transversion, these all things are actually the basis of genetic variability. Then this mutation we have seen that this mutation can be because of mutagen as well. So a natural mutagen or an environmental or because of artificial mutagen which is introduced in a population can also be the reason of gene variability. And then finally natural selection, it plays its role that okay fine, if they are modified but then too they need to play their role. So like this we have completed Darwinism, Neo-Darwinism. In today's class we'll be talking about the evolution of cells and unicellular organism in the upcoming video. So this is it for now. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe our channel, that is Let's Crack CSIR-UGC NET, and please hit the bell icon for getting all the notifications of the upcoming video. And if you haven't subscribed our channel yet, just go and subscribe the channel. Lastly, use my referral code, that is FB01, for getting a 10% discount. So do not forget to use my referral code, that is FB01, for getting an additional discount of 10%. So you can write in the comment box if you want to read a specific topic in the CSIR syllabus. I'll be very much happy to help you out. So this is it for today's class. We'll be meeting again in the next class. So it's a bye from my side for now.